track record. If you look at his website, Boom Boss blog, you'll see that he predicted a number of events before they happened, like the collapse of Bear Stearns 2 months beforehand, as well as the fall of Lehman Brothers before anyone even had a clue. Reggie also appears regularly on television stations, CNBC, Bloomberg TV, CNN, BBC, and he even made an appearance on a Dutch documentary, Tegenlicht, produced by VPRO last year. And that is also, you can see all these videos on his website. Reggie describes himself as the world's leading realist, but be warned, he can be offensively honest when he needs to be. May I have a warm round of applause for Reggie Middleton.
So, another question I've been asked is, do you think real estate will remain a valuable inflation hedge or a viable inflation hedge? First, you have to make sure you're asking the right questions. A lot of people ask these questions, I think, because they're reflecting upon what they see in the media. And I think the media is mischaracterizing the events at hand. To begin with, from what I can see, real estate has been a very strong inflation hedge in several different geographic locations, the US, in Europe, and in Asia. And for very real reasons. You know, when the costs truly go up, people still need a place to stay. You know, you need something to do, and it throws off income at the same time. But when you ask if real estate is going to be a good hedge, it's going to be a good hedge for what? You know, you have to be very specific. Here, semantics, the meanings of words really make a difference. Is it going to be a hedge for inflation, or deflation, or stagflation? That's the question to ask. What are we really experiencing now when you look in the media and you see that inflation is going up and they use the term inflation? Let's go through simple definitions. You know, I'm more of an analyst and an investor and not an economist, but plain vanilla definitions. Inflation is when excess money and liquidity chases too few things and drives the price of these things up, usually in an overheated economy. Deflation is the opposite. You have a dearth of liquidity, not enough credit and capital, causing prices to drop because nobody wants them, basically. And then you have stagflation, which is the worst of both worlds, where you have inflation causing prices to go up, but you have asset values and economic activity dropping. Stagflation is what I think most people are experiencing when and that's what drives them to come to ask me, will commercial real estate be a good inflation hedge? I don't see any indication that real estate is going to break its historical correlation. You know, when in the dot-com bubble and in the real estate bubble, I had a lot of people who came to me very bullish, but this time is different. This time it really ever is different. For the last 2,000 years, maybe 10,000 years that you've had banking, economics, and trading, you know, human nature has always been the same. As long as human nature is going to remain the same, economics are pretty much going to remain the same. The greater question to ask, instead of asking about that correlation, is to take a look at what's going on. There are indications that the input prices are increasing. So a lot of the liquidity that you have coming in the market is there, and the liquidity is coming from the central banks, you know, to basically break the economic circle of life that I showed. That liquidity is causing commodities to shoot through the roof. Commodities are the input prices for real estate. Energy, you know, heat, oil, electricity, steel, lumber, you know, the standard. When commodity prices increase, the cost of running your buildings increase. Okay? That's good, and that would denote inflation if wages increased, economic activity increased, and you had more people fighting to rent your properties. That's inflation. China has true inflation right now because China has an increase in practically everything. Commodities are going through the roof. You have wage inflation. Okay, so wages are going up. You have property price inflation. The price of the properties are going through the roof. Not the value of properties, in my opinion, but the price. What we see in most of Europe is you see the exact opposite. You see economic recession. You see this is the third country getting bailed out. You see a lot of economic manufacturing and service sector activity going down, but you see input prices going up. So input prices go up, rental income go down, vacancies go up. Would that be inflation, deflation, or stagflation? Stagflation. Come on, someone help me out. Thank you. One more time. Okay, thank you. Stagflation. Now, with stagflation, it's still quite possible that real estate retains its good correlation to inflation. The problem is we don't have inflation, which is why you see a discrepancy between the increase in these prices and the decrease in real estate, because it's being mislabeled as inflation. Now, the next question everybody asks is, well, if inflation occurs because there's an excess of liquidity in the market, and you just said that the central banks around the world concerted behind Benjamin Bernanke and flooded the market through credit and liquidity, well, then what gives? Well, this is the issue. They put all this liquidity out. Liquidity got trapped in the banking system, and the banks never let go of it. I think everybody realizes that there's an awful lot of liquidity that's been put out just to save and bail out the banks. You had significant liquidity. Okay, you had significant credit being extended. The U.S. alone put out dollar swaps. They put out, they repurchased mortgage-backed securities. They bought treasuries, et cetera. So with all this liquidity and all the credit being given out, does this audience perceive credit to be tighter or looser than it was 4 years ago? Tighter, thank you, thank you. One more time, a little louder for everybody else. Tighter or looser? Tighter, thank you. Okay, so that's the issue. So you can have significant liquidity, but in order for that liquidity to cause inflation, it has to be released into the system. And it hasn't been released into the system. It's stuck into the banking market, and it's been reabsorbed by them buying the bad assets. So that's the long and short of it in terms of inflation, deflation, and the correlation to real estate. And of course, the obvious answer is stagflation, in my opinion, will suffer. I'm sorry, real estate will suffer if I'm correct in that this is stagflation. It's also possible for real estate to suffer in inflation as well if the inflation is significant. Because if prices rise faster than your ability to raise rents, then you have the same problem everybody else has. Even though you have an inflation hedge, your inflation hedge has to be able to match the rise of real estate. Okay, so solutions. You've heard me complain. I'm up here, I'm telling you this is wrong and that is wrong, and what the Japanese did and the European nations. Well, we do have solutions. One is enabling people who have exposure to real estate to buy and sell risk. Okay, so their advantages are significant.